In this video, the Keg and I road trip together to compete in a rib competition. You want to see more about it? Stick around. Hello everyone and welcome back. Recently I was invited to a rib cook-off in Crown Point, Indiana. It's about an hour and 20 minutes from my house. My sister and brother-in-law live there and invited me to come down and compete in this competition. Now it's an informal competition. It's not any kind of officially sanctioned event by any kind of barbecue organization. It was mainly a bragging rights competition amongst the guys in the neighborhood. And I was a little hesitant at first to get involved. For one, I'm not big on competitions. As you know, I just like to cook and eat and drink for myself and family, friends, parties, and things like that, right? Well, so I've never competed before. And I was gonna be at a disadvantage right out of the gate. For one, I had to bring my own grill down there because they don't have a grill for me. The ribs of choice were not spare ribs, which were my personal preference. I have to cook with baby backs, which I don't have a whole lot of experience with because I prefer spare ribs. So I was out of my element. I had to bring down a grill. I couldn't bring my Kamado Joe Big Joe with me because it's really large and heavy and wasn't going to fit in my truck. So I had to go with the Broil King Keg that I got earlier this year. And it came with a trailer hitch attachment, which hooked right up to the back of my car. So I had a grill that I didn't cook on much. To cook ribs, I don't cook much of, and it kind of left me kind of at a bit of a disadvantage, in my opinion. I also wasn't prepared that I didn't have a canopy tent to set up because we're gonna be out in the sun all day. Well, I went online and got a 10 by 10 pop-up. Well, since I got the 10 by 10 pop-up tent, I also wanted a banner to hang with my logo on it, right? So I went out and got a 4 foot by 4 foot banner and hung that from the front of the tent, which actually looked really cool. So I was committed and on my way to this barbecue competition, and I was getting pretty stoked about it. If you want to see how the day went, stick around and I'll show you what happened. The first thing I had to do was hook up my keg to the trailer hitch on my SUV. Well, it was a lot of work just to get that part done. The videos, a few videos that you see of people doing this online make it look really simple. Well, nothing's really simple, right? It actually took a couple people, some elbow grease and some jigging around with this thing in order to get it mounted all the way on there. It was actually not as easy as it first appeared. But I got it on, got it to Crown Point, backed it up into my brother-in-law's driveway, dropped it off, and it was an uneventful experience. It didn't fall off the back of my truck, and it was actually a pretty cool thing to actually be able to bring a Kamado with you somewhere. So in spite of the trouble getting it mounted and getting it unmounted and remounted again onto the cart later on, it was actually, it turned out to be a pretty good experience overall. The competition was actually in a cul-de-sac in a subdivision in Crown Point, and they got a block party permit. They blocked off the cul-de-sac and we started putting up our tents all in a row there. There was 7 competitors in total. This is the first ever, or the inaugural rib cook-off event they've ever had. So it was a smaller group this year, which was great because it improves my chances of winning, right? But we all started setting up around 8 o'clock, putting up our tents, getting our grills assembled, our tables, and all our other gear and equipment out and set up. We had a pretty good variety of smokers being used in this event. Even though there was only 7 contestants, I think all the different types of smokers were represented. I mean, there was the 2 Kamados, my keg, and my old Char-Griller Acorn that my brother-in-law was using for this competition. They also had a propane cabinet smoker, I think it was a Traeger pellet smoker, a couple Weber Smoky Mountains, and even a Weber 22-inch charcoal grill. I mean, that was a pretty diverse group of smokers to cook on. So this was going to be a pretty cool thing to see how all the meats turn out on these different types of cookers. And in addition to the smokers for the ribs, one of the guys brought his Flattop grill with him. And that was a really great thing he did because, I mean, we ate well throughout the entire day, starting with breakfast in the morning. Let's see, we had bacon and eggs and hash browns and sausage and whatever else was thrown on there, all sliced and diced and cooked away. And we ate like kings all morning long. Then after breakfast, someone had the idea to start making other foods for lunch. So we had grilled cheeses on the flat top, and grilled or fried spam sandwiches, potatoes and onions, a bunch of other little sides, all being cooked up and fried up on that griddle. It was, I was getting to the point where I was getting a little bit too full to want to eat the ribs later. Not really. I'd still eat them. At 9 a.m. the ribs were issued. So there was 21 total racks of ribs, 3 per team basically, right? And these were baby back ribs, not spare ribs again. This is what my preferred Cue would be, spare ribs, but whatever. We used baby backs, and they were all purchased from the same butcher in the area. This helped to eliminate the variable of the source of meat as being a contributing factor and help focus more on the rub sauces and skills of the cooks. Everyone had their own way of dealing with the ribs when they got them, right? So generally you would dry rub them and let them sit for a while and throw in the smoker. Well, not everyone followed that convention. Some rubbed them up and threw them right on the grill right from the start. One guy wet brined his ribs in a bucket of saltwater brine and some spices for 3 hours before he even pulled them out and rubbed them to throw them on later in the morning or earlier in the afternoon. Personally, me, I dry rubbed them right away and let them sit for 2 hours to let that rub really kind of soak in a bit, and threw them on a little later, probably sometime after 11 a.m. As soon as everyone got the ribs, like I was saying, some people fired up the grills right away. I waited a while. I also decided to bring along my CyberQ temperature controller with an adapter I also had just bought from Barbecue Guru. It was the adapter for the Broil King Keg, which I did not have previously, so I figured if I have the tools, why not apply them, right? That way I can let the temperature controller control my food while I socialize and film and record and do other things, which I thought was pretty cool. I eventually put my ribs on sometime after 11 a.m., which completely threw out my original plan of cooking my baby backs later in the day, because the baby backs, they don't need 6 hours of cooking, for crying out loud. I was actually going to cook them about 250, 275, starting in the early afternoon, because judging turn-in time was around 5 p.m. So I figured I had plenty of time. However, I got cold feet when I got there and realized that this competition thing is not like a home party. You had to have your food done by a certain time, and I was getting a little bit nervous about how much free time I was going to have between shooting this video and cooking the ribs and doing other things. That was going to be, I felt like I was going to be hard pressed for time to wait till later to do everything all at once. So I went ahead and put my food on a little earlier than I planned on. Got the temperature set about 215, and now I used a double stack. I had an upper rack and a lower rack. I put 2 racks on the lower rack, 1 rack on the upper rack. Racks and racks, lots of racks. Anyway, once the ribs were on, there wasn't much else to do for a few hours except hang around, so luckily Chad showed up just about this time. Here's a little clip of us talking. Now the audio is not that great because again, I have a new camera with a new microphone on top of it. Didn't have the audio settings dialed in just right. It's a little clipped, so be patient, but here it is.
That's good. That's good.
All right, man.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We're here at our first rib cook-off contest here in Crown Point, Indiana, and Chad and I are chilling out in our matching apparel. One of 7 contestants today, using a variety of grills. We have propane smokers, charcoal grills. We have a couple Kamado styles. We have a Traeger pellet grill, among other things. A couple rubber Smoky Mountains. So a lot of fun going on. We ate breakfast out here this morning on the Flattop. I brought a keg of my beer, the Rye-PA, which Chad was just drinking out of. And there's still some left of that. It still tastes pretty good.
Yep, it's good.
And we're killing time. The ribs are on. They've been on for hours, a few hours now. About ready to pull them off probably sometime in the near future. And we're just enjoying ourselves out here on a nice day.
Yeah.
Yeah? All right, well, time for a refill. I'll be back. Cheers.
Now with a big 4-foot by 4-foot banner advertising BEER-N-BBQ by Larry outside my pop-up tent and wearing logo shirts and everything, I couldn't just show up with just ribs and barbecue. I had to bring beer too, right? So I brought a small keg of the Rye-PA that Chad and I helped brew with Paul and Mike up in Wisconsin back in August. I still have some left, so I brought that with me to share with anyone who was willing to try it. It ended up being a hit amongst lots of people there, and not just the cooks, but a number of the attendees. I mean, that keg was killed in relatively short order. So good job, Paul. It's a pretty good recipe. When it came to the style of ribs I was making today, I just took a page out of my playbook from a few years ago where I did another video on bourbon maple glazed ribs. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. But the dry rub's the same, and the sauce is largely the same, but this time around I had used a quart jar of homemade canned fire roasted tomatoes, which I did a video on also last year on how to do that. So I thought I'd use some fresh tomatoes rather than canned tomatoes in this batch. And I layered it on, a couple layers actually, over the course of about an hour before turn-in. And I threw in some baking potatoes to share with anyone who would want one, because I'm that generous. With turn-in time being at 5 p.m., that was approaching very rapidly actually. With all the distractions of trying to shoot video and talk to people and have a good time and cook for the competition, I kind of got sidetracked and lost track of time. I was a little pressed to get my 4 bones. We had to turn in 4 bones to the judges in a styrofoam box with garnish. So I had to hurry to get 4 bones. I had to cut 4 bones, one for each of the 4 judges, and put them in the box and turn it in, and I got there just a few minutes early. The judging process, in my opinion, was largely informal. There were basically 4 judges chosen from people in the neighborhood who wanted to be judges. There wasn't any training or certifications involved. It was just people who wanted to try the food, which can have an impact on how things are judged. There were 3 categories on the score sheets with points from 2 to 9, 9 being good, 2 being bad. One category appearance, the other one texture, and the other one taste. While the judging was going on, we opened up the ribs for everyone else at the party to come eat, and we had a big feast. Not only did we have the ribs, but we had sides that some people made, sides and main dishes that people have brought as well to augment the ribs, and everyone ate well. When the results finally came, they only announced the top 3 winners. So if you weren't in the top 3, you were considered 4th place because they didn't rank anyone below the 3rd place. And unfortunately, I was not in the top 3. So, which is okay. Again, I didn't expect to win this competition, but it was a fun time, had a blast. I would definitely do this again. In the future though, I'm gonna try to hone my skills on the cooker I'll be using in advance of the competition, using the right kind of meat for the competition, where, like I said earlier in the video, I was at a disadvantage here, not being able to cook baby backs very often and having a newer grill to work with. Again, excuses, I know, but those are my excuses. If only a type of competition existed where you can pair home brewing with the barbecue, I think I would fare a lot better. I don't know of anything out there that can do that, where you can submit a sample of your home brew along with the rib sample at turn-in and have both be rated both individually and together. I think that would be a kick-ass competition. And I think I'd probably place well in that one. As I think of myself as more of a jack of all trades, but master of none approach, I like to cook a lot of foods. I don't focus on any one style of food. I'm not a rib master. I never claimed to be. I just like food. I cook outdoors, I cook indoors, I brew. I just like to make my own food and drink. And if there was a competition that enabled me to show that off, I would be all in. But there isn't. So there you go. All right, well, thanks for watching, everyone. If you're a new viewer and not yet subscribed, click the subscribe button. There'll be a link somewhere around here on your viewer that you can click on to subscribe. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up and comment down below. Let me know what you think. If you have any tips, throw them my way. I'll try to incorporate them in the future. And other than that, I will talk to you all later. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out other videos on my YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe.